الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وأصحابه المنتجبين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The thing that is missing within the human community is the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and is the lack of spirituality. Even though the majority of the people of our world are good souls and are good people, yet great many of us are still unconcerned with the welfare of others, with things such as righteousness, justice, peace, these fundamental values which ensure a good and a successful, meaningful life are still missing in a prominent way. From our daily mundane activities to the great international arena, we are finding a lack within these fundamental values at the core of humanity. What really brings us to a state of regression and waste is this absence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a meaningful. If we look at the history of mankind, we will see that only through those beautiful prophetic messages have human beings flourished in a very wholesome and a holistic way. Otherwise, there has been success, economical, political, but the expense of undermining the other. People have excelled at the expense of the destruction of others. But only when the prophets came and they imparted their godly spiritual message did we find that the communities evolved and they allowed for the growth of other communities simultaneously. In the present world today, truly what is needed is the spiritual reawakening. From our daily lives, everyday concerns, our thoughts, our actions, to what is happening in this world of ours, caring for the other. The fact that we don't feel fulfilled in our lives and we are constantly struggling for a purpose shows a fundamental lack of spirituality, a lack of God in a prominent, meaningful way. The very fact that nations are being destroyed and that we can sleep peacefully at night shows this absence of God in a meaningful way, shows an absence of these fundamental values of righteousness, justice, spirituality. If we were to follow the instructions given by these blessed prophets of ours, and if we were to follow the revelation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed in various forms, whether it's Torah, Injil, Zabur, Quran, whatever else they might be, we would know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the prophetic teachings consider us as one human family and one community. Is it possible, therefore, that we should feed whilst our family are starving to death? Is it possible that we should be in safety and security whilst people in Yemen are being destroyed, whilst people in Syria are being killed? Is it possible, if we consider the human community as our family, that we would side with one political party as opposed to the other because by designation we both belong to the same faith formally. Are any of these things possible? It does not seem so. If you remember that story, when Ali ibn Abi Talib saw a beggar and he said, "What is the state?" And he was responded to, "O Commander of Faithful, he is a Jew." The Imam was appalled at this. He said, "I did not ask you of his religious persuasion. I am asking you of his state. Is this right, that when he was youthful, you used him for his abilities? Now when he has become old and incapable, you disregard him and discard him. Shouldn't the state be catering for his needs?" Similarly, when the forces of Muawiyah transgressed and attacked a house of a Jewish woman and her ornaments were removed, he gave a very passionate sermon on the pulpit. He said, "Shameful is this day that in my khilafah a citizen has been transgressed upon and we are remaining silent." What does this teach us? It teaches us that the human community at present is in a state of chaos. It's on a line of or route of self-destruction. It is regressing. And the amazing thing is that never before has the human community been more moral than today. Majority of the people understand and value the fundamental principles by which the human being should abide: righteousness, justice, the value of peace, care for the other. Never in history have we seen charitable institutions to the extent that we see today. Never has there been, prior to 100 and some years, a charter of human rights that everybody formally commits to. And yet, with all of this in place, never have we seen in human history, when people are so capable, are so awoken intellectually, never have we seen people so dormant as well. It just shows that something is going terribly wrong, that we need to awaken. Now I say this, that in the present world, it's not sufficient for us just to know the truth, but our duty is to make a difference through the knowledge of that truth. We need to emulate these principles in everyday actions, everyday life, and of course to also promote them and to talk of the others to ensure the well-being of the others. One of the things I want to say here in the end of this khutbah is that because in Syria the whole conflict has been divided along religious or sectarian lines, yes, does not mean that it's a sectarian strife. It does not mean that the problem is between Shias and Sunnis there. Awaken to this. It's a political problem, and therefore it does not mean Assad is right. On the other hand, it doesn't even mean that the rebels are right. So when Russia supports Bashar, doesn't mean Russia is right. When the United States and United Kingdom and France support what they call the moderate rebels, does not mean they are right either. We need to awaken that what is happening there is something which is beyond religion. It's something to do with right and wrong. So just because Assad names himself a Shia does not mean that the Shia community goes and supports him. What is right, what is wrong is wrong. And just because the moderate rebels apparently are Sunni does not mean that the Sunnis support them. All of this is due to this movement away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from righteousness, from godliness. Truth does not recognize Iran or Saudi Arabia. It's oblivious to all. The scales of justice, as we often say, are blind. Right is right, wrong is wrong. We need to be mindful and we need to awaken to this. It seems that we are people who, understanding the truth, have very lazy minds. We are in a comfortable lifestyle, and it is easy to forget that we too will stand in front of God with our human family in front of us. In that, there will be orphans whose parents have been taken away from them, and there is nobody to care for them. That orphan was my child in this world, who will complain to Allah about his parent in the next. There are members of my family who are starving to death. There are members of my family who have lost all sense of what it means to be within a secure environment. Anytime a bomb can fall upon them. Saudi Arabia bombed civilians, killed 130 civilians at a wedding. That's my family. The Saudis are aggressors. Assad bombs civilians. That's my family. Assad is an aggressor. Britain supports certain countries. United States supports certain countries. Iran supports certain countries. Saudi promotes certain groups which are unfriendly to human well-being. All of these countries, and the heads of those countries, or the political heads of those countries, are unjust people. We need to acknowledge this. We need to understand this. We need to know the truth within ourselves, and we need to act in accordance with that truth in the most humane manner. As I said, when we introduce Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within our lives in a very meaningful way, it's an overriding principle. It does not understand nations or states or religions. Now, our minds have been stolen, and we are lazy. A few people at the helm of these nation states are ruining it for all of us. Because in a very prominent way, God does not exist there in their minds. Yes? They are wholly worldly. If you look at the Prophet of Islam, he relied on righteousness and on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He did not transgress upon the rights of others in understanding that ends justify unjust means. He said an unjust mean is unjust. Forget it. Nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm finishing this khutbah. Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he removed a lot of the governors, he said, I know, politically it's a bad move. It's a wrong move. In order to ensure the stability of my own seat and power, I should keep them there. You see, Nahjul Balagha. He said, but how can I tolerate such transgressive, unjust people in the name of God? Righteousness is righteousness. If it means me losing my khilafah, let it be. But I cannot tolerate ungodliness and injustice. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The execution of Shaykh al-Nimr was the greatest injustice that Saudi Arabia has ever committed in the name of executing somebody who is guilty, or under the pretext of executing somebody who is guilty of terrorist acts. The only thing Shaykh Nimr did was speak up for social justice, removal of oppression, and rights of minorities. It brings to mind that today's Muslim who sees everything outside Middle East as the land of the kafir, himself has been fooled that within the land that he calls the land of the kafir, things which are rights and liberties are to be fought for within Muslim lands. The principles of Islam, like Raha fi Deen, is the basis of the right of a person to express freely what they believe. Speaking for the rights of minorities, how can that be seen as an act of terrorism or inciting terrorism? And then to execute this noble person alongside tens of Al-Qaeda terrorists is indignifying him further. And then to top it all off, Britain remains silent and previously votes in Saudi Arabia into the United Nations' most prominent Council of Human Rights as a member. Isn't this a big joke that is being played at the international level with all of our minds? Whenever a resolution is passed against Israel, United States vetoes it. Whenever something goes against Saudi Arabia, when they are in violation of human rights, you find Britain remaining silent, in fact, aiding Saudi Arabia to gain more prominence. Despite the people of these countries being noble and good people, the whole countries are hijacked by the heads of state who are probably being bought over. But the Saudi Arabian case demonstrates one thing prominently, that United States is not interested in Judaism, the policymakers, or within the Jewish agenda, or the Zionist agenda, or Israel. It just means that they are bought. Similarly, our heads of state here are bought by Saudi Arabia. Anybody who can pay the highest money will buy our leaders. I will say this, what Saudi Arabia has done is unjust, is wrong. But at the same time, the attack on the embassy in Tehran was wrong and foolish. The Iranians should have protected the Saudi embassy adequately. They are diplomats. By international understanding, they have rights and they have immunity. Respect that. The Prophet would never have allowed such a thing. But as a result, look at what's happened. The focus has shifted away from Saudi violation of human rights to the issue of Iran attacking the embassy. And then what you find is a Sunni alliance against Iran. It was never a Sunni-Shia issue. Look at how we naively play into the hands of these international players. Saudi Arabia is guilty of so many crimes, and it should be asked to respond to this. When these nations promote democracy, they should understand that their ally Saudi Arabia allows for no democracy, no rights of minority. Rather than imposing democracy in Iraq and Libya, talk to the heads of Saudi nation about democracy, about the freedom of expression, about the rights of minorities. It's an embarrassment to us in this world, being Britons, that our government is doing this. Whereas we live in a noble country, righteous country, in which people are moral, they are upright people who stand for the principles of righteousness wherever it may be. It's a shame that such noble people are hijacked, or their country is hijacked by certain few who have no scruples when it comes to being bought over by others. And then, of course, pretexts are made and justifications are made. But on that line, and I know my words will be taken not lightly here, but if Iran is executing people on the same lines, then Iran is equally guilty. And it should be brought to answer for whatever it is doing. There should be transparency in Iran as well as Saudi Arabia. But when it comes to Saudi Arabia at the present time, the war on Yemen, killing so many innocent people, a poor country whose infrastructure is being destroyed by Saudi Arabia. The international community cannot remain silent. And this thing goes beyond Sunni and Shia altogether. In the name of neutralizing the Houthis or whoever is seen as their opponent, they cannot be allowed to destroy a whole country, a whole people. Surely the international community has to speak out against this. But not only are we silent, we bring about a greater insult by promoting Saudi Arabia to the United Nations Council of Human Rights. A country who is most in violation of human rights is promoted to the Council of Human Rights. What can be a greater joke upon our minds than this? We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq to not only know the truth, but to speak about it and to live by it in a peaceful manner, acceptable manner, to promote it, to bring this understanding within the people who can then hold their governments accountable, so that the likes of the present government that we have here are not elected in the future. And if they are elected in the future, then they know that they are accountable so that they do not make wrong moves in our name. Can we recite the Surah Fatiha for our beloved Sheikh Nimar and all those, whether Muslims, non-Muslims, who have been killed for standing up for righteousness and justice and for minority rights? Al-Fatiha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل وسلم على محمد المصطفى وعلى علي المرتضى وعلى فاطمة الزهراء وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي وحجة الله بن الحسن القائم المهدي المنتظر.